Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great Wednesday, getting ready for week 3 of your fantasy football seasons. My name is Justin Fensterman, and it is Fantasy Sports Daily on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. For the next hour or so, going to be talking about some of the matchups we have to look forward to from a DFS and seasonal perspective, maybe a little bit of wagering, and some of the injury news that we are going to be watching out for. For those that don't know me, my name, like I said, Justin Fensterman. I'm the lead NBA analyst. I also cover NFL for FantasyGuru.com. And with that in mind, I do all of our practice reports Wednesdays, Thursdays, and then our injury report, which gets updated throughout the weekend at FantasyGuru.com. Offense and defensive players there. That way we can make sure that all of you are prepared. And make sure, by the way, you check out our buddy Jeff Mann's on Elite Sports on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Rankings are out, FantasyGuru.com, and One Man's Opinion as well, the weekly podcast. That is always fun getting to hear from Jeff Mans, especially for those that are looking to learn more about the game of football. Going to be a fun day here because going to talk about some of the players as well that haven't been performing too well, where I don't want to say this is it. If this player doesn't hit our expectations, then you have to drop him. But then you start freaking out a little bit. Because I was actually running the social media over at SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio last week, and the Twitter takeover Ray Flowers normally handles that. I filled in for Ray last weekend. There were so many starter sit questions, a lot of DK Metcalf versus low-end receiver. I get people are paranoid. Harrison versus low-end receiver. It's hard to get away from that paranoia and to step out from the moment after the first week of the season or even the first 2 weeks of the season. And that is where you got to make sure that you're doing just that, because we're still very early on into this season. It's good to see everybody. What's going on? Sean, Doug, great to see you. And yes, injuries are going to be a big thing. That's why it's funny. People ask me, Fensty, and I'm seeing, by the way, my video going in and out. My internet seems fine. By the way, something else that I want to talk about very quickly is that I want to give everybody a warning, a fair warning. I don't know why I've been sneezing, getting into these sneezing fits all morning. So just letting everybody know in advance, it's not you, it's me. It feels like I got a piece of pepper lodged up my nose, and then I'm going to sneeze and sneeze and sneeze. I assure you, I'm not allergic to anyone, but in case it happens, then we'll all have fun with it at the end of the day. So it's not you, it is me right there. So with that, before we start with the football, we got to talk about something else that's going on here, and that is something that broke, I want to say, within the last half hour or so. That's right, Woj bomb. Right? You're thinking you're getting NBA. No NBA here. This Woj bomb, the final Woj bomb, because Adrian Wojnarowski announcing that he's going to become the GM of the Bonnie St. Bonaventure when it comes to college basketball on the men's side. So no more Woj. And I just want to say, as someone who has been into the NBA and a diehard his entire life and have been writing content since 2011, I appreciate Woj. I will miss Woj. I think Woj is a fantastic reporter because it's not just about breaking the actual story. It's about sourcing. It's about connecting all the dots. And that's something that Woj took a lot of time with. And we make fun of guys like Ian Rappaport all the time and how inaccurate he can be, because there is a thing about being first, but it's another thing when you're inaccurate. So if you're inaccurate, then it's not helping out the credibility, and it's hard to take those people seriously. Woj, though, is someone who is very credible and someone who just knows the game of basketball. This isn't the Bonnies doing Woj a favor here. Woj knows basketball. It's one thing being a reporter. It's another thing when you know exactly the inner workings of the game itself. on the court as well as off the court. And there was no one better than Woj in the NBA, in the history of the game. No disrespect to Shams Charania. Does a pretty good job. He's not Woj. We're not wondering sitting there, and Shams isn't like this at all. Shams is no Rappaport. But Shams, when it comes to his sources versus Woj, it wasn't even a competition. So now it's going to be interesting to see who moves up, who becomes that secondary reporter in the NBA. We all loved Woj bombs, and we got plenty of them beyond the NBA draft. And they were hella accurate. And one thing I also liked about Woj is that at times when he didn't source properly or he forgot to source someone, there was someone out in Miami, Ira, whatever, who writes for, I believe, the Miami Sentinel or whatever. I don't know. Someone who is a longtime Miami writer who would get on Woj at times for not crediting him properly, and Woj handled it with the utmost professionalism. So to see that just completely blew my mind, as that's why it is a Woj bomb. So Woj is done, going to be the GM of the Bonnies. So we'll have to see now who takes that spot. I don't have those sources. It's not going to be me. I don't have actual NBA sources. So when it comes to who is going to be that secondary reporter, I'm very interested. Maybe a Chris Haynes comes to mind right there immediately, because Shams is going to need somebody else helping him break stories, and it will be good seeing some of the younger reporters moving up. But I was not expecting that at all. I was just very shocked when I saw that. So when I saw that happening, I'm like, hey, is this accurate? Is this the truth? Is there someone that maybe hacked Woj's profile? We've been hearing a lot about hacking lately and people using that excuse. So no, this is for real right here. So let's get real and talk a little bit of football, because we've got some injuries we're going to be watching out for, and I'm definitely going to be writing about when it comes to our practice reports here at fantasyguru.com. And that is, we're watching out for Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. And the reason is because one of the pickups of the week, I'd say, and this is someone who I heard a beat writer out of Minnesota talking to Jeff Manz on his pregame show on Sirius XM a couple of weeks ago about this, that Jalen Naylor could take on that TJ Hawkinson role. Very loose, very hard to really trace that. But if you're telling me that, and then I'm seeing this guy get looks and meaningful looks, like he could get into that end zone, unlike some of the other players we're going to talk about in just a little bit, that right there is something that's very intriguing. But what does that mean if Jordan Addison can play? Will there be enough targets for Naylor to the point where we can take that shot? And that's where I'm not sure. So if you have him, keep him on ice right now. Not a bad pickup. Not at all. Sam Darnold, with the way he's been playing, by the way, and how he just took out the Niners like that. That's unbelievable with what we saw. Sam Darnold, for a lot of his career, pretty inaccurate, but just shows you have someone like a Justin Jefferson that can get it done. And even without Justin Jefferson, Sam Darnold has been pretty good through 2 weeks. Let's not go crazy. I believe it was, a few years ago where he was on Carolina and he was rushing in touchdowns. And a lot of people, because with your rushing touchdowns there, you're getting your 6 points. A lot of people were getting hearts in their eyes for this guy and said, hang on a second. Can he do more if he's not rushing in 2 touchdowns a game? Caught up to him. And that's something we have to watch out for. So I'm excited to talk to the fantasy Bosco, Rich Maletto, in just a little bit about whether he is putting even more trust into Sam Darnold, because at some point, if a streamer keeps performing well, maybe not as a top quarterback, but in that top 12, are they a streamer anymore, or are they a reliable seasonal option moving forward? We should always have our eyes on that waiver wire. But at the end of the day, when it comes to waivers and when it comes to streaming quarterbacks, if the quarterback is getting it done, then if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But eventually, you got to think that this guy's going to get challenged and the opposition is going to figure out how to limit him. But for now, with Sam Darnold, I'm interested to see and to hear what Rich Maletto thinks about that. Rachaad White with his groin. Bucky Irving, a big-time pickup there. So with Rachaad White, that's someone that I'm actually looking at for his injury because I want to see if Bucky Irving is able to get a little bit more. Haven't seen much from Rachaad White last week there, injured the groin. And so now with Bucky Irving, I want to see what's going to happen with this Tampa Bay situation. Keenan Allen, we were kind of taken for a ride there, injured himself towards the end of week 1. And then when he was questionable, and I'm waiting to see if he can log full practices, and clearly there was something there. And then luckily we got that news in time in the morning from Adam Schefter, who, by the way, when I was talking about Woj, Schefter is amazing at his job. He is. Everyone makes mistakes, yes, but he's great. He's absolutely great. Him and Woj, very comparable. Give the minor edge to Schefter, but it's very hard because they're two different sports that they focus on. Although you sometimes see Schefter dipping into other sports just a little bit. The NBA I've seen a couple of times, but still, he does an outstanding job. And just giving us that information about the Bears for Sunday Night Football, which could have put us all in knots because it could have been much worse heading into Sunday Night Football. We may not have known about the A.J. Brown scenario as early as we did. I was kind of surprised. I thought it wasn't going to be confirmed until Monday that he was going to be out. But when I saw him not practicing on Saturday after coming up limited on Friday, that's something that's never good. If you ever see that in my injury report, just know that that's a warning sign that bad things could come from that. And not everybody needs to practice a certain amount to play. But when you see the trajectory the way it was, limited on Friday, was hard to get a read on Thursday, and then on Saturday didn't practice at all, that is a bad sign, and that is not good. So that's why we needed that news, and we got that news. And we got enough of the news surrounding the Chicago Bears with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. And that's where Adam Schefter gets a lot of credit because going into those two games, we were dealing with injury hell. It was funny because I spent most of the morning helping out others come up with contingency plans, players to pick up now. Do you pick up a Ray McLeod? Darnell Mooney's still out there. Do we pick up him? Dotson, where is he at? And then all of that, I don't want to say was for nothing, but then we got the news when we did, and we were able, and we're not always going to have that luxury. So always be prepared. And that's why it's important to read the practice reports. I do one pass through and then I do another later in the evening that gets the West Coast teams and all that. And let's say I don't get something, I take one more look in the morning before I move on to Thursday. I work off my Wednesday report for the rest of my reports. So it's important that that Wednesday report is full. And sometimes with some of the star players, it's going to be full of BS. Not that I'm writing the BS, but, oh, this player didn't practice today. They're saying it's an ankle. We'll be able to read through that a little bit. Normally, I'm able to find a source or two that's saying it's a routine day off or there's no injury reason they were just off of practice. And I'll report about that too, because it's none of our business whether someone's going through something personally or not. But at the same time, it's good to know that they may not be practicing all week. And could that impact things a little bit? All of a sudden, we get a report or two, whether it's someone national or someone local, saying, hey, the reps are expected to be split because this guy didn't practice for 3 of the 4 sessions. Something else to think about. And that's where the practice reports are coming in. Josh Downs, we're going to have to watch out for too, because for guys like Alec Pierce and Jalen Naylor, for them to be able to keep up their appeal, it would be great if someone else was out. Now, if Josh Downs comes back, because I really want to see if Anthony Richardson can bounce back here, because one of the players that we want to see more out of is Michael Pittman. But I'm interested to see if Alec Pierce, who's been on this team, if he ends up remaining a deep threat and is given a lot of those, what I call home run swing targets, like a Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed doesn't get targeted a lot, but he gets tossed deep. And that is translating to a lot of our fantasy points. That's why guys like Rashid Shaheed are the hardest to decide on whether to start, especially if you don't have multiple flexes. If you have one flex, well, you're starting 3 wide receivers and you've got one flex, probably not as big of a decision, but with 2 flexes, yeah, it is. And the Saints offense has looked very good. And Rashid Shaheed has been getting some deep shots. And he has that speed and should continue to get those deep shots. But will that translate necessarily to target volume? And that is what, in a way, can be a little bit scary. And when it's scary like that, you're going to have those days where you're going to swing and miss. He's going to have maybe one catch for 50 yards. And that's where you have to look at more than just the fantasy production. Because when I see someone with 2 catches for 94 yards, let's just say, yeah, good for my fantasy team. But what does that show for the following week? I want 6+ targets. I want to see Shaheed get hit again and again and again. And if Alvin Kamara is running as successfully as he is, and the Saints offense is moving as well as they are, and they're going to have their challenges along the way, then yeah, that volume's not going to be there. So that's where I'm interested for guys like Alec Pierce, for guys like Jalen Naylor. I'm interested to see for those two whether or not maybe another pass catcher is out or so. So that's something we're going to have to continue to watch out for. When it comes to spreads and totals for the week, the Lions and the Cardinals, whatever, a lot of eyes are going to be on that game because we are coming off a week with a decent amount of unders. So now when you're looking at the divide, a lot of games 42 or under that I'm seeing so far. Thursday night football to start with the Jets and the Patriots. That one has been hanging at 37.5. So your high total games are going to be Lions, Cardinals, Eagles, Saints, Ravens, Cowboys. I am so interested. I cannot wait to watch Ravens, Cowboys. I want to see what this Dallas offense brings because I've got questions about just about everyone else on this team besides CeeDee Lamb. I want to see what Zeke can do still. I want to see Brandon Cooks. How much is he going to be part of this offense? Jake Ferguson, I have in 4 leagues. My most invested player in fantasy is hurt, and the tight end position continues to suck. It's awful. I took shots on Parkinson. That did not work out. Now, moving forward, because now 2 big receivers for the Rams are hurt and out. Now, does this open up the opportunity for him there? It's a lot of dart throws we're taking at that position. Dalton Kincaid. Is it encouraging seeing more targets than in the previous week? Yes. But for what, 33 yards and that's it? That's it? That's all you're getting? Dalton Kincaid, a prioritized tight end? Travis Kelce. Dude, Travis Kelce. We're at the point where now it's lodged in my memory with Travis Kelce that he got a catch taken off the board because of a flag. Pretty decent gain. I have to beg for those for Travis Kelce, who I have in one team on a keeper deal that I've had for years and years. It's Travis Kelce. I shouldn't have to worry. And I'm not worried just yet. I'm not underselling. And this is where this lesson is huge right here. I'm not underselling Travis Kelce. I'm not selling Travis Kelce. I can't sell Travis Kelce. There's no market for the tight end position. Let's look at this live right now. I'll go through this position because when you're making trades, and I know you're all eager out there. You're all eager. You might be 0-2 right now, and that sucks when you're 0-2. I get the feeling, especially you might be getting crushed at work. Let's just say my family league, I'm 0-2. Mr. Fantasy Guy, I'm 0-2 in my family league. Is it because I drafted a bad team? No, I've got a bunch of underperformers. I got guys like Najee Harris who aren't getting in the end zone. I've got guys like Zamir White who I had big expectations of not getting the utilization, not getting in the end zone. Terry McLaurin hasn't bubbled up just yet. Diggs good game, Diggs bad game. I mean, this is what we're dealing with, but we are dealing with things in the beginning of the season where I'm at the point where, yeah, it stinks that my guys are underperforming, but I know what some of these guys can do. And I haven't hit the panic button just yet because Zamir White, for instance, is going up against Carolina. And for me, I don't want to say, make sure you have him in all of your DFS lineups just like that. But I'm going to say with Zamir White, if there's any matchup where this guy should see volume in the second half, and this could be a different situation with the quarterback swap in Carolina. Maybe their offense shows up a little bit more with a veteran running it than Bryce Young. But at the same time, if Vegas is up big in this game, you got to be thinking they're going to be utilizing this guy in the second half or utilizing both him and Madison. So that's why I'm willing to give it one more week with Zamir White. Sean's saying don't do it when it comes to Travis Kelce. Yeah, don't do it. Sometimes the best trade is not making the trade. You don't have to trade. It stinks right now. But let's go back and look at, before we talk with Rich Maletto, the tight end market that you're working with. Because when I'm looking to make a trade, and I don't like to trade in fantasy sports, I look to see what's going on with the market recently. Have there been enough value position players that have been performing well where I can maybe make that trade and lower the value of certain staples of our team so I can get them at a discount? That's what I'm looking at, and that's what I look at. The tight end position is always hard because generally you have your 3 or 4 guys that had real draft value attached to them or a draft price attached to them, and then you had a bunch of others that were 9th round or later. Okay. It's funny because looking through the tight end leaders right now, it's Brock Bowers. And yeah, it's still Isaiah Likely, but Isaiah Likely, you all saw it. Not saying one-hit wonder. Isaiah Likely is good to have almost if you need a replacement for Andrews, but we see Isaiah Likely get targeted 12 times in week 1, 3 times in week 2. So the guy who was the most added player in fantasy after week 1 sucked from a fantasy standpoint. And Mark Andrews coming in a little bit banged up, getting better and better as the weeks go by. Yeah, you had to expect that was going to happen. So your tight end leaders right now are Likely, and this is in a full PPR, Likely, Bowers, and Bowers, by the way, it's looked pretty good. Another good matchup coming up. Vegas has had a few decent matchups there. The Baltimore one I was shocked at, so I don't want to say that. The Chargers, call them what you want. Baltimore, though, that was very surprising, and it eliminated a lot of teams in Survivor. With that, I just didn't know why people weren't chasing Carolina. Now, it's going to be a little bit more of a risk because they're changing up their offense a little bit. But Brock Bowers has put in 2 very nice fantasy performances, nearly got to the 100-yard mark, 6+ receptions in 2 games so far. Great to see. Trey McBride, single digits in week 1, but encouraged by the target volume. 9 targets. You like that. 6 in week 2. Caught every target thrown his way. So he has been helping out. But then, after that, you go down and you see Kyle Pitts, 3 targets, he was able to get into the end zone. Saved his value. 4 targets, 3 for 20. Not good. There's no market. The reason why I'm doing all of this and I'm talking, there's no market right now. It's tight end hell. I'm having trouble finding replacements, and those top tight ends now are going to be valued too high. So I can't make that trade. I have to continue to stream, and that is what I'm going to continue to do. I'm going to continue looking to stream. I'm going to continue rolling with Dalton Kincaid in my guillotine. I am. It's at some point, not going to say I'm going to just flat out drop him in that kind of league, and that's a specific league. But at some point, you got to think things have to get better. The offense is putting up numbers. He's just not getting those looks. So I'm interested to see, because we saw what Bowers did to Baltimore. Can they adjust in 2 weeks? Yes. But I'm very interested on Monday night. And by the way, we've got 2 games Monday night. Want to see what he's able to do against Jacksonville. Just 5 receptions so far, not even 50 yards for Dalton Kincaid. But we have to be patient here. We drafted this guy. We drafted Travis Kelce for a reason. We know how great they are at their position. So when it comes to the panic button just yet, I'm willing to give it another week or so before I really start to feel like at least with those guys have to invest another player or another position player at the tight end position. I have no problem doing that. It's better than having to dip into other depth for my running back and wide receiver likely just to address the tight end. I'd rather continue to stream. That's just me. Pat Fryermuth, another example. 4 targets, not going to get it done unless he's hitting that end zone. Just, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. Mark Andrews, 5 targets for him, nearly 10 points. That utilization will rise as we continue to roll here. So right now, your tight end leaders, when it comes to your, let's say, top 10, likely Bowers, Kittle, George Kittle. Imagine having to value him in a trade now because you've got Deebo Samuel who's banged up. Kittle's coming off of an 8-target game in which he got into the box. So imagine if you have to, we saw how Bowers did against LA, or rather, no, never mind, different LA. My fault, Chargers, Rams, different LA. But now it'll be interesting to see what the 49ers and the Rams do when it comes to their pace, when it comes to the Rams offense, to see how far they're going to be behind. But with no Deebo Samuel there, George Kittle, safer floor, you would think. So I'm interested to see what George Kittle does, but you can't trade for a guy like that right now. You just can't. Trey McBride, he's in there, about 27 points. Hunter Henry, who he had your 12-target game. And I thought, by the way, that was hilarious there. 8 for 109. You just kept watching that game. You'd think that Seattle would figure out how to adjust. It's not like New England has a lot of players that can burn you. All game long, though, open again and again and again. Going across the field, hit again and again and again. No adjustments made when it comes to that. None. So with the no adjustments, he was able to continue to get open there. So Hunter Henry is up there at number 5. Mike Gesicki, because he had such a big week 2, 7 for 91. Mike Gesicki right now is someone who's in that top 6 mix. And again, this is where we have to be careful. Zach Ertz is in the top 10 right now. 2 4-targets games. This isn't me saying Zach Ertz is great. This is me giving you the perspective as to where the tight end position is right now. Because it just looks awful. And that's why you can't trade when you've got a position like that. You can't make that trade. There's no trade market. You got 2 of the top guys. That's a different story. Who's in that position? Not me. So just be careful when you're making that trade. And yeah, it's funny because, Captain's saying there, he traded Worthy and Flowers for Bowers, and pretty bold trade. And he has Bowers as tight end 1. So, man, we got Kyle Pitts as well. It's interesting. And again, when you trade Xavier Worthy and Zay Flowers for Bowers, and you're looking at that as an option here, it finishes at tight end 1. Look, if you think Bowers is going to finish as the top tight end, then that's fine. If that's what you think there. You've got Kyle Pitts. We were all expecting Kyle Pitts, better stuff from Kyle Pitts. We absolutely can get that. We thought he was able to get into the box a couple weeks back. But as of right now, look, if you're thinking that there's no rule saying you can't start 2 tight ends in your lineup, you want to flex one of them out, go for it. Kyle Pitts starts putting up consistent double-digit numbers. Target volumes nice in that 6 to 8 range. You're seeing that consistently. Teams can't stop them. Start both of them at that point. No rule against that. No rule also on these streams that you can't have more than one person. So let's take the good-looking meter of this podcast, or rather of this stream right here, and let's turn it up to 11, because joining me right now, as he does every single Wednesday to talk some football with all of you, it is the Fantasy Bosco himself, Rich Maletto. Now, Rich, I hope everything is going great, and I just want to confirm is your car parked right now?
I am parked. I am absolutely parked.
Okay, good.
No movement.
No movement. Okay, we just got to make sure that we're being safe out there. A few people were concerned. So I can now confirm that Rich Maletto's car is officially parked here. So, Rich, I mean, I was just talking about how sometimes the best trade, and we talked about trades a little bit last week too, but when you've got weeks like we've had so far, and you've got a position as a whole pretty much not performing well, and what to do, because even some of the guys that I look to pick up to start, I hit on one with Jonnu Smith last week, but then I picked up Mr. Parkinson thinking that he was going to see more volume. That did not work out, unfortunately. So I've been saying that there's no trade market in the tight end position right now when your top guys are performing like dog crap. You've got two of your top 5 guys that are up there. That's it. And we can't even stream properly. I don't know how you make a trade at this position right now.
I wouldn't. I mean, part of the reason I would stay away from making a trade at the position anyway is top to bottom the scoring. What advantage are you really going to get, right? Like, first of all, we can't even predict who the top couple of tight ends are. All our favorites haven't been there. So let's just assume, I saw the discussion with Bowers, let's just assume he's there. Chances are he's going to have a couple of down weeks. At some point, the defenses are going to adjust, right? We see this every year. This is what I keep trying to tell folks. It's week 2. I have been adamant for the past few years. We don't get the real NFL till about week 6 and 7. We don't. Whether it's injuries, whether it's teams figuring out identities, whether it's rookies learning the playbook. You know, used to be we could count on rookie running backs from the start of the season. Nowadays, I don't think you can turn to a rookie running back for the most part until about week 6 or 7. They just don't have the understanding of the systems and schemes. So I don't want to go chasing tight end, knowing that probably by week 8, Kelsey's going to start performing again, right? Knowing that Dalton Kincaid at some point is going to get his 9-target game. Knowing that Kirk Cousins isn't healthy yet. The offense isn't clicking yet. The best we saw that offense was the last drive on Monday night. So now we got something to build off of. So I'm not willing to throw, the talent on Pitts. Jonnu Smith hit last week, but he wasn't much the week before. Colby Parkinson, to your point. And oh, by the way, don't look now. That's 2 consecutive weeks the Arizona Cardinals have completely taken the tight end out of the equation. Kind of odd for a team we used to lean on that couldn't stop the tight end. Just something I noticed. Dalton Kincaid was a non-factor at all, and we saw the exact same thing with Parkinson, which was even more weird considering all the injuries at the receiver spot. Right. So, a lot of this is game script and matchup. So I'm not in any desire trading away my depth when I know injuries are already stockpiling and adding up and being a headache to go chase a position that, quite frankly, getting 5 points out of doesn't really kill my roster either way. And honestly, you can find that there is not much of a difference between fourth. I mean, even Likely is still the top tight end. And oh, by the way, he did nothing last week. 2 catches, 26 yards. Same thing Kyle Pitts did the week before, except Pitts got the touchdown, and nobody wants Pitts. So I don't know what people are going after and chasing. I get the allure of Bowers. I have no problem adding Bowers. I wouldn't sell high on Bowers. I would hold on to him if I had him, but I wouldn't overpay to go get him because I'm adamant. In about 3-4 weeks, we're going to start seeing a lull with Bowers as defenses adjust and take away what the Raiders are doing. And what are you going to do then?
Right? It's like when a new pitcher comes up. First few starts, and I'm talking, Rich, a highly touted pitcher that's coming in there. And yeah, the first few starts when he's striking out 8-9 guys in 6 innings, teams are just like, what the hell and everything like that. But then by the time that 4th, 5th, and 6th start hits, you start to see the adjustments a little bit. Imanaga, you saw the team started to adjust a little bit and the numbers started to go down. Rich, when people look at things on an average standpoint, when it comes to average tight end scoring so far, yeah, Isaiah Likely, right? Averaging 15 points, 26-4. That's what we're looking at. When it comes to Hunter Henry, who a lot of people are looking at, 3-19. That's what we're seeing right now. Juwan Johnson, 10-0. Shoemaker with the injury with Ferguson, but 10-0. Gesicki, 4-16. There's no consistency outside of 3 guys, Brock Bowers, who, like you're saying, and I completely agree with you, teams are going to figure out how to limit this guy. George Kittle, who there's no market for him because of the Deebo Samuel injury. So the price tag for him will be astronomical. And then because here's your Mr. Consistency without an excuse, Trey McBride, who has 15 targets. That's really it. There's no market for this position. And so I got to ask you something, Rich, being that we're now in the same boat regarding don't trade your running back and wide receiver depth to help out with your Dalton Kincaid teams, like I've got a Dalton Kincaid team. Who is maybe a tight end that you would consider streaming in week 3? And I'll even put a B part of that question. Colby Parkinson. Do I stick with this freaking guy?
I have no problem sticking with Parkinson. Parkinson came out. The streamer article's not up yet, but I was tweaking it before the show. You already named all 3 guys I got in the streamer article: Jonnu Smith, Mike Gesicki, and Hunter Henry. The reason they're on the list, they're under 20% owned. Let me ask you this, Justin. You just went through the numbers. What's the real difference then between Hunter Henry and Isaiah Likely? If you take away the names and look at the numbers, what's the major difference? It's not much different.
Nope. You're seeing similar, to how they were utilized there between the 2 weeks. And it's in a full PPR, it's a 4-point difference.
Right. Okay. I can get Hunter Henry for free. I picked him up on waivers with, I think, the 8th waiver position or some crap like that in a league. I had Njoku. He's hurt. I threw in Juwan Johnson, who burned me last week. So I was like, you know what? At least Henry's on the field consistently. There seems to be a rotation going on in New Orleans. So I'm going to throw Henry in there while I can. He's been decent over the years, right? He's had some consistency. So I'll lean on him. Colby Parkinson, his ownership is up now. It's up almost over 30. It's up almost 230%. I have no problem using it if I have them. Again, this is 2 weeks in a row the Cardinals have done the same thing. 1 time it's fluky. 2 times you have to start to wonder. 3 times a trend. So if we see the same Cardinals defense shut down whatever tight end it is this week, I have to go look who it is, which I think they might be playing someone that doesn't have much of a tight end they use anyway. But you get what I'm saying. We've got a trend then that we can kind of build off of and look at, but I don't see a need. Look at all the money that got spent on Likely last week on Fabs. What did that get you? You've been better off playing Gesicki or Henry. Gesicki, 25% target share last week on 47% of the snaps. Now, some of that was because of the injury at the tight end position. I believe it was Hudson that was out. They have a need for pass catchers in Cincinnati right now to spread it around without T. Higgins out there. So we could see this from Gesicki. We knew from an athletic standpoint he could be that, but guess what? I'm expecting another week where 3-4 targets. Like what do we really, other than McBride and Bowers, like you said, who's really getting consistent, significant volume? None of them. It's a week to week matchup standpoint. I don't want to play that. I would rather make sure I have the depth, to your point, at RB and receiver, knowing that injuries are going to come up, knowing we're going to have to make some pivots during the bye weeks. And frankly, as the bye weeks come up, we're going to see some of these tight ends get dropped that are better than some of the streaming options anyway as the season kind of ramps up. So I'm not chasing tight end. I don't understand why everyone's kind of flipping out. We do this every year, man. Every year there's hype. Oh, the tight end position is going to be mad. It's going to matter this year. We've said that for the last 10 years, and it's never changed.
I've got one tight end where it's this week is a show me week here. And by the way, Sean, I brought this up for a reason. Got to start looking at median versus average data. I get that, but at the same time, I don't want to start looking at where the line is with some of these tight ends. And you're right. See, your second point kind of is the one that really hits home. 2 data points, not enough for a trend. You're 100% right about that. But there are people here who are freaking out. This is a preventative conversation that we're having. This is a don't sell your house for the tight end position at this point. That is what the point Rich and I are making here. Rich, Dalton Schultz. Now, Dalton Schultz, we saw what Kittle did last week. But here's the thing with Dalton Schultz, and we had to be worried about a couple of these options going to the year. Does Houston have just too many weapons that they don't need to really make Dalton Schultz a key piece of that offense? Because we've now had 2 weeks of 3 targets, and I feel like this was my final, if I'm going to target a tight end before I just go into stream mode, Dalton Schultz was at the bottom of the list. And so with me, Dalton Schultz, I don't know, man, if I can go into this week trusting him. I just think there are too many options.
I think you're 100% right. Mike, I really didn't get Schultz anywhere this year because of exactly what you described. You bring in Diggs, he's going to command targets. I think Schultz was the benefit of the next man up, so to speak, after Nico Collins and Tank Dell for the most part. Well, now you got Nico Collins and Diggs. Tank Dell's back. Not to mention, Cade Stover's no slouch. I've been kind of on the Cade Stover bandwagon here and tight ends take time to develop. But CJ Stroud played with Stover at Ohio State. Stover, in my opinion, is as athletic, if not more so, than Dalton Schultz. So I think you're seeing also a cut in snaps played. You're also seeing a reduction in potential target share because of the Diggs addition, because of Cade Stover being there. I'm with you. I'd be nervous about it. I know Kittle did his thing, but some of that is Ayuk hasn't really been a factor. Kittle's been kind of the number 2 look. And to your point now with the Deebo Samuel injury, they're leaning on him even more. I'm nervous about Schultz. In all fairness, I would probably go Hunter Henry over Dalton Schultz. I might even consider Hayden Hurst over Dalton Schultz. They're probably about the same. Hurts is in an offense that's not really moving the ball much, but he's playing. Disley did get more work this week, but I still feel like Hurts is more the pass target guy. But to give you an idea, that's a pretty low tier, Fensty. I'm not actively going and, taking out those or going to pick up those guys. You know what I mean?
Yep. Sean says I need to calm down a little bit, Rich.
I like fired up. I like fired up, Fensty. Okay, give me fired up, Fensty.
You know what, Sean? Don't tell me to relax here because I'm going to drop Travis Kelce in a second. Okay, Sean? All right? What do you think about that, Sean? Is that calm enough for you? Okay, Sean, breathe and relax, Rich. Okay, I got to calm down. It's 2 weeks into the season. Rich, why don't we talk about situation going on in Kansas City? The situation with the running backs here, because it could be different this week opposed to moving forward here, because I don't know if you saw the Pacheco injury, but I was watching that, man, just watching that live. The way he got stretched out, man, you knew immediately something was going to be wrong. You're not supposed to bend like that. Not even if you're in porno movies can you bend that way.
Right.
So just seeing that and how he's going to be missing some significant time here. Listening to the Elite Sports Show, our guy Jeff Mans was actually talking about this week how, even though right now he's a practice squad guy, Kareem Hunt coming back in, not yet 30. And while a lot of people are focused on whether or not Samaje Perine is going to be more than just a pass catching back and making like Carson Steele is the next Adrian Peterson, how are you handling this situation from a starting one of these backs standpoint? Or do you trust either Steele or Perine enough? And do you think and agree with Jeff that Kareem Hunt will eventually be the guy that's going to be relied on a little bit more?
So I recommend folks check out last night's coaching live stream with me, Russ, and Tyler. We actually discussed, all three of us discussed in depth that whole backfield situation, our approach. The three of us, Russ was kind of, he's like, I'm out. I don't have an opinion. But me and Tyler were basically of the same view. And we disagree with Jeff and Ray on this. I don't have any faith in Hunt. After Hunt had that leg injury 2 years ago, he was not the same with the Browns. They kept forcing him back out there after the Nick Chubb injury, and he wasn't effective. He really wasn't. He looked slow. He looked plodding. I'm out. I don't chase 28-year-old running backs to begin with. It's kind of like the Dalvin Cook thing. There's a fall off with these backs. This is not 2018. I saw a post today that says, we're going to get back to the Nagy, Reed, 2018 Kareem Hunt that led the NFL. And I'm like, you realize 2018 was 6 years ago. And in running back years, that might as well be a lifetime or a career. So I'm not on that. Andy Reid and rookie running backs, historically, they don't get a lot of work. He's slow to bring them up, especially now with the shortened off season, practice not starting till August. I don't know that you're going to see Carson Steele all of a sudden jump into Pacheco workload. I don't think you're going to see that. I also don't think you're going to see Perine do that. I remember it was either last year or the year before, Andy Reid talking about the split with, I believe, Pacheco, McKinnon, and someone else. I think it was CEH. We got three good backs that do three good things well, and we're going to continue to use them. I see this as the same way. I'll be honest, Vincey, I'm kind of out on the backfield without Pacheco. I don't trust the split in the workload. I know folks are going to be enamored and spend a bunch of fab money or go chase it. I don't want the headache. There's enough headaches with the injuries and setting lineups between, say, Terry McLaurin and Cortland Sutton. I don't want the headache of guessing, do I want 10 carries with Steele and hoping for a touchdown? Like, I don't know. So I'm largely let everyone else have the headache. I'm out on Hunt, though. I'm out on Hunt. I'm out on Dalvin Cook. I'm out on these older running backs, Finsty. I just don't want any action.
No, and I totally understand that, and I'm trying to see it from both sides because this is one of the things, and we can call it very fair here. I mean, we both work with Jeff Mans very much. We know how much Jeff Mans knows football, and I say working with him or not working with him, that there are not many people that I know personally that know more about the game of football than Jeff. So I'm interested to see what ends up happening here. I just think with what they have right now, not including Kareem Hunt, isn't enough, which makes me a little bit intrigued in Kareem Hunt. Now, with that, if I'm in that desperate of a situation, and in some of my leagues, let me tell you something, Rich, I got 3 leagues where I have a combination of Zamir White and Najee Harris as 2 of my 3 running backs. That's really not, no, it sucks. And what sucks even more is that Najee Harris is getting volume. So I can't like Zamir White where I can blame volume a little bit. Najee Harris is actually getting volume. So that to me puts me in that kind of mindset here. So not saying that Patrick Mahomes can't handle business on his own and he's loaded with weapons to rely on here, but Carson Steele people making like he's going to be the next big thing. We all fall into this trap every single year. And what happens? We end up wasting most of our budget in week 2, thinking that our season's over. At that point, if you're willing to waste your entire budget on a Carson Steele, that's when I'm saying you need to really think about trading. And I'd say 90% of the time, you probably aren't in that position. But Rich, when you're 0-2 and your team's underperforming because you have a week to think about it or 5 days to think about it, the emotion sits there, and I feel like that leads to a lot of bad decisions in fantasy.
Well, it does, and I think you hit on something that I feel like I realized last night we should probably discuss more, and that's roster construction. You're in a situation, Finsty, where, frankly, you need to find someone that can get you that 5, 10, maybe 15 points on a good day, right? Because you don't have options otherwise. Whereas if you had a couple of other pieces, I would argue take Braylon Allen over Hunt, for example. But you don't have the luxury of stashing a guy like that right now. You need someone that can go in and score some points.
Ryan wasn't even on waivers, Rich, in these leagues. And it's by the way, these are combinations. Some of these are 2 of them are casual leagues. One of them has industry people in it. And I would say if you have a league that has a majority of it writing content, even if it's one piece a week, that makes it not a casual league anymore. But yes, Rich, me, we all play in casual leagues, and I try to think of this stuff from the casual audience member because that's who's really out there playing fantasy football, not giving it the 100% attention that it needs on a day-by-day basis.
Oh, for sure. I guess what I'm getting at is your roster construction really should dictate what moves you're making. In your scenario, it makes sense to go after Hunt. If I'm using, I've got, for example, I didn't even go get Carson Steele in the league where I've got Monty, Kamara, and J.K. Dobbins. It makes no sense for me to go chase Carson Steele. It makes sense for me to chase a Braylon Allen, a Ray Davis, a Jalen Wright, somebody like that potentially in 3, 6, 4 weeks from now could have a significant role and be somebody if a J.K. Dobbins goes down or something like that. Whereas if I'm 0-2 and I'm struggling to even find 5 points at my receiver or my running back 2 spot, I've got to take shots on a Steele, on a Hunt, or something like that. And if I'm forced between the 2, it's tough. I guess I lean Steele over Hunt. I lean Pirine over Hunt, probably because I feel like if Hunt does get that role that we all hope he would get or some hope he gets, it's going to be 2 weeks away. Right, he's got to learn the playbook. He's got to get up to speed and shape-wise, or at least good enough football shape. So we're probably 2 weeks away. I need something now. I'm hoping Carson Steele goes 10 carries, 50 yards, and falls into the end zone. That's what I'm hoping and praying for, right? And I have as good a shot at getting that from him as I do Zamir White, right? But like I said, if I've got these 3-4 other starters, there's no sense in doing that. I'm probably not 0-2. I should be planning for what happens in 4 weeks from now when things are outside of my control. And I just don't think as an industry we do enough discussion of, Jeff does during the offseason a lot, but outside of that, I don't think we discuss roster management and why it's important and how, you build a house with a foundation and you have studs, but that doesn't mean you put drywall up without studs or you hang studs without the drywall. Like, everything's got to kind of mix together and be a mesh. And I don't think we do a good enough job doing that. And honestly, I think it leads to a lot of silly questions. Do I pick up this guy? Do I drop this guy? Do I do this? Do I do that? Well, if you've got 3 stash running backs on your roster, don't add another one. You probably need that 5 to 10 point getter. If you've got 4 of those on your roster, you've already got those. You've got your bye week fill-ins. You've got your backups if needed. Go stash a couple of players, right? I mean, we need to do a better macro view, I think. I think we get stuck in the weeds to your point, like, oh my gosh, now I've got an RB1. Hunt's going to be there. Pacheco's gone for the 2 months. I've got the guy. Do you, though? Do we really know?
Right. No, and I'm totally with you there. And that's why in that situation, I did overspend a little bit on Kareem Hunt, but I'm not at the point.
You had to.
I had to, but I'm not at the point where I'm like, I need this guy this week. For me, with that team that I just mentioned, where I've got, by the way, Jonathan Taylor, Zamir White, Gus Edwards, and Najee Harris. So I've got Taylor, but then I've got 3 guys. Sucks with Gus Edwards because Dobbins is looking good. Edwards is still, again, he's getting the volume. And I like that. At this point, Rich, I'm looking at targets and I'm looking at volume.
100%.
Do I want my players putting in those double figures numbers for my fantasy teams? Yes. But if I'm still seeing that they're getting those double digit carries and I'm seeing a decent amount of targets, I'm okay with being a little bit patient here. This is why, with what I was talking about right before you joined me, Zamir White, this is the show me something this week.
Yes.
Something you're against. I mean, you can say what you want about what Dalton going to be there with Carolina now in the offense. Say what you want about the offense. Maybe it makes him a little bit more competitive. Good for the Brock Bowers and Devontae Adams of the world. But this guy's got to fall into the end zone. I don't care if he gets 8 to 10 carries. This guy needs to do something, or we're going to be freaking singing the Alexander Hamilton song parodies of Alexander Madison and I don't want to sing that, and not saying that this is some rando with Madison too, because in different systems, running backs perform differently. Not every single team, as Jeff Mans talks about a lot, not every team has the same system. So one running back could be better in a certain system than another. But with Zamir White, who we all drafted in the 7th round after what we saw at the end of last season, it has been a freaking bummer, man, with this guy. And now he has what I call a pretty rainbow red flop of a matchup, which should feature a lot of running, and it should have him get into the end zone. But if he's going to get 3 carries for 6 yards, bro, I don't know what the hell to do.
The sad thing is let's say you were active and you went ahead and got Madison and White, right? Because Madison was mostly free. So as a handcuff option, we pushed that. I could see that. If you had both right now, do you want to play either? Madison has points because he's fallen in the end zone in 2 weeks, in both weeks. That's it. There is no volume. Even Zamir is close to him in passing targets, which threw me for a loop because Madison was basically the 3rd down back week 1. And now all of a sudden, after 2 weeks, both of them are close in passing targets. Madison's, I think, has a total of 9 carries in 2 games. So it's not like he's even getting the ball. It just so happened he got the ball at the 2-yard line and went into the end zone last week. The week before, he caught a 29-yard screen pass out of his 36 total yards receiving and got in the end zone. He's averaging 2.2 yards a carry. So even if you drafted both of these guys, I don't know that you could count on either one of them. Like, the frustration level is off the board with these 2 running backs, and I don't know what to do with them, Fincy. I don't. It's a mess.
It is a mess. It's funny. Now you want me to sing the song parody. See, this is what happens, Rich. When you say certain things, now your feet are held to the fire here. So I'll bring my friend Jen Piacenti would kill me if I was singing like part of her Alexander Madison song. But I'll just say this, because if what I'm hoping we're not singing come Sunday for those that have Zamir White, going into the end zone is Alexander Madison. His name is Alexander Madison. That is it. That's all I'm singing right there, Hal. There you go. Eat your freaking heart out. And by the way, while I have Rich here, I'll say this. A lot of people were messaging me on my attire last week saying I was too buttoned up and wasn't showing chest hair. So make sure, Rich, that everybody gets what they want here when it comes to Fantasy Sports Daily. And speaking of that, why don't you talk about some quarterback streamers that you have your eye on so we can all crush it week 3, even though the walls seem to be coming in at this point with a lot of our studs?
David Carr. Yeah, David Carr is available everywhere as well.
He's out there.
He's out there everywhere.
Same with Matt Barkley too, by the way.
Matt Barkley too. And Chase Purdy, which people are be like, who? Because Chase Purdy drives a NASCAR. But anyway, I don't know how many times I've had to go back to my article and be like, Chase Purdy, this isn't NASCAR, that's Brock Purdy. Derek Carr is still fairly low owned. He's under 20% owned, even after waivers ran last night. So he's definitely worth a look. It's efficient. Look, if you have Carr and he's your second quarterback, by all means, if you could, I'd be fine selling it. This efficiency is not going to hold up. 39 pass attempts in 2 games. But for right now, if you're streaming, excellent option. Go for it. I got to tell you, Fenty, I can't believe I'm saying this. 2 players I've really warmed up to in the last month, Sam Darnold and Quentin Johnston.
Dude, you know what, man? I couldn't wait to ask you about Darnold because you were, and I'm just saying this here because we have no problem goofing on each other if we were wrong about something, but Rich was on him that first week, especially. You saw something there. And I literally remember talking to you a week ago being like, bro, the level of competition has like opposite now. And you're like, look, if that line can protect him a little bit, and they were giving him some time. And even when Jefferson went out, he was still okay, man. So I trust you. If you're telling me to keep rolling with this guy, let's roll, man.
I tell you what, if he's available in any super flex leagues, which I'd be shocked, or you are really struggling right now, I have faith in Darnold the rest of the year. And the reason for that, I kind of, the first game, line looked really good, defense looked really good. It was the Giants. So you took it with a grain of salt. And to Sean's point, two data points don't mean anything, but here's the deal. The Vikings 2 years ago, the defense was 31st or 30th. They moved all the way up to 15th last year. People hated that defense and the player personnel to begin with. There's no reason to think that defense isn't going to improve slightly again. So here we are. You have let's call it a top 10 defense. I think that's reasonable and fair. And you have, I got to tell you, Fincy, a top 10, top 5 offensive line. I mean, they really did a good job against the 49ers this weekend, which is not an easy task. We saw that with the Jets. The Jets did okay at times early on with the run game, and then it went away, and Rodgers was all over the place. So between the offensive line and the defense, you don't need Sam Darnold to do much. Fency, Jones and Chandler are averaging 5.5 yards a carry this year.
Yeah.
If you're going to get that from your 2 running backs, which one is not rostered anywhere. I mean, if you have Aaron Jones and don't have Ty Chandler on your bench, do yourself a favor and do it now. I'm targeting Chandler where I can and get him added.
Too late, unless waivers haven't run yet. People are too late. Like if your waivers already ran, I can't see unless you're in a 10-team league that Ty Chandler's out there.
I checked this morning and he's under 10% rostered as of this morning.
What?
I don't get it.
You know what the problem is though, Rich, with that? And again, me doing waiver articles in the past too, they take in account those averages, the 8-team leagues and the 10-team leagues. And there are a lot of them. I'm not saying I look at the percentage as well, but what I do is I kind of like when I'm writing waiver articles or when I used to, I would go 40% or lower when I would write waiver, thinking that, trying to get the entire audience there. But for those 12, and especially the 14-teamers, but the 12-teamers, I can't see him being out there in 12-teamers.
He shouldn't be. And that's what I'm saying. If he is, do yourself a favor and add him. Like Finsty said, if waivers haven't run tonight yet for you, try it. Anyone that owns Aaron Jones, if you do not have Ty Chandler, you are putting yourself in a world of hurt. I'm just telling you now. And he is as good of a stash as Chandler is, as Braylon Allen, as Ray Davis, or any of these guys. In fact, I would put him above those guys because Jones tends to get hurt. And frankly, I don't care who's the back. I had to double check the number this week and the hair because they both were cutting and weaving through. And I'm like, man, put me behind that offensive line. I could walk through some of these holes, right? I mean, so look, I went on record earlier this week and said I think the Vikings right now, I know it's early, are the best team in the NFC North. Fancy in our staff picks, I picked the Vikings to win last week. I was the only one to do so. I didn't do great on the rest of them. None of us did, but I was pretty proud of the fact I was willing to say it with my chest and put it out there. The Vikings at home, I like what I see, and so I think Darnold's worthwhile, and he's probably one that's worthwhile to hold on to. Same thing could be said with Carr. So, those are a couple of guys. And look, as much as I've just hated on Quentin Johnson for the body catching, feel free, guys, go back and watch all his catches this year. They're all body catches, all of them. But Jim Harbaugh, I always get the Jim and John confused. They're scheming it. They're running the slant patterns. They're running the turnarounds. They're running the routes where he's able to do that and let him use his skill set. Quentin Johnson's the alpha in Los Angeles right now. And while it's not big passing volume, I got to tell you, he is still only 6% owned roughly. Again, it's an average. He's available in a lot of leagues, man.
No, dude, that's a whole game of musical chairs right now with the Chargers because it's you've got Palmer there too. You've got Johnston. You've got McConkey. It's a lot that's going on right there right now. It really just as Hurst we've talked about, we brought up in this conversation. Rich, this has been awesome, man. And you're always bringing the heat. You're always bringing the good energy and the good vibes. Final question for you with your streaming article set to come out, fantasyguru.com. So make sure you go check that out and give Rich a follow at Fantasy Bosco on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Rich, who are a few defenses that you're looking to potentially stream for those out there that still play with team defense and kickers?
Green Bay Packers this week, I think, is a decent look. This one's going to shock some people. The Cardinals. The Cardinals are the lowest roster defense in the league.
Yeah.
And yet they've put up like double-digit points or close to it, depending on your scoring, in back-to-back weeks. So, and it was against the Bills, and it was against the Rams. We're not talking about two teams that everybody thought would be jobbers and irrelevant. Matt Stafford knows what he's doing. No, he hasn't looked great. They've had some injuries. And the Bills have Josh Allen, and it was a high-scoring game, and the Cardinals still scored some points. So I like the Cardinals matchup this week, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but I got to believe the Cardinals are a sneaky little play, man.
Man, look, that's going to be very sneaky because you look at this total. This total is your highest total of the week here at 51. The one game from when I last checked, it's in the 50s here. So there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be fearing it. But if the proof is in the pudding there, Rich, then that is how you win, going against the grain a little bit here. Again, thank you so much, Rich, for stopping by. What else do you have coming up on the site as you're getting ready for your week 3?
So streamers will drop this afternoon. I still got to button up some of that. There's will be a couple other recommendations that we didn't talk about in there. Start Sit will come out on Friday. So please feel free. I've added a thread under the NFL season. Look, I know I'm a real stickler on start sits. I expect either or later in the week, and I won't touch them till later in the week because it's an exercise in futility otherwise. It really is. You're doing things to do things, and I don't have time to do things to do things. So, but feel free to list as many players as you want, as many questions as leagues as you want in that thread, and I will be sure to talk about them specifically in the article. That's what I use it for. I tried to highlight the players that are discussed the most and explain where my logic is and why. I won't speak for Jeff, but I'll note where Jeff's at in some of the rankings. It's always fun when I'm like, I'm way higher than Jeff right now on this player, and then come see Jeff adjust on Friday, Saturday, and be like, okay, I'm not that way high. We're very close to similar. That's always kind of cool because, again, I have the utmost respect for Jeff. I trust his stuff. We may disagree from time to time, but honestly, Fensty, I don't understand why people are confused by that. We're all different humans, so we're going to see things a little bit differently. We're going to
have different opinions here. We are, but there's a way that us as analysts can go about it without being jerk-offs about it. You know, that's the thing. Not making like we have to be know-it-alls and everything and explaining and watching the games and being able to have our own opinion. That's why this is this is why this kind of conversation exists right here. So that's why it's about how you act and be with class with the other analysts too, that Jeff and I don't always agree when it comes to NBA, when it comes to NFL, but I respect his opinion. He respects 100%. Mine. That's how we should all be. And we respect and thank you all so much for hanging out on Fantasy Sports Daily. FantasyGuru.com. Again, go to our content landing page. You'll see all of our content there. Let me put very quickly. Let me see if I can be a little nifty here. There you go. Wow, look at that. Fensty getting a little advanced with the controls here.
I'm impressed, man.
I'm getting there, man. You're seeing the link right here. And with that, it'll have all of our content there, links to it that you can just click on as they get released. So make sure you check out not only Rich's content, but mine as well. For the Fantasy Bosco, Rich Maletto, I'm Justin Fensterman. Ray Flowers will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, same YouTube channel on the Elite Plus Network as part of fantasyguru.com, the place where winners win.